Game over screens. You know, that one moment where everything just stops. Sometimes it's just a quick try again, other times it's a bit more messed up than you'd expect. Whether it's because of the music, the visuals, or the context behind them, some game over screens don't just say you failed, they straight up traumatize you. So in today's Iceberg, we're diving into some of the creepiest, most unsettling game over screens in video game history. Some are disturbing, some are weird, some just straight up cursed, and yeah, it gets way worse the deeper we go. This one's made by users like Trash5063 on Reddit. Also, I'm back. I was doing stupid school stuff. Yeah. Alright, let's just get into it and start at the surface. The Metal Gear Solid series. Okay, this one's kind of iconic, but also, yeah, it's creepy in a weird, existential, fourth wall breaking kind of way. So the Metal Gear Solid series, you probably already know it, is this stealth action franchise with like the most overcomplicated lore ever, but also some of the coolest moments in gaming. You play as various snakes, trying to sneak your way through military bases and uncover government conspiracies involving nuclear mechs. Now, the game over screens in Metal Gear aren't just you died type stuff. They're fully integrated into the game's narrative. Like when you die, your teammates will literally scream your name over the codec. I'm not going to recreate it, but yeah, it's really dramatic and over the top and kind of hilarious until you realize how personal it feels. Like they're not mourning you, they're not just like, oh well, try again. They act like you actually died.
Snake, are you okay? Snake? Snake!
But then the series just keeps escalating, and Metal Gear Solid 2, they hit you with the fake out fish and mailed screen mid gameplay, making you think you died when you actually didn't. The screen says mission failed while the game is still running in a tiny window. Then in Metal Gear Solid 3, they introduced the time paradox game over screen if you kill important characters. Like, not only did you die, you broke the entire timeline. Congrats. There's even a fake death pill item that triggers a game over screen on purpose so you can trick enemies. That's how far they went with this stuff. By the time you get to Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5, the game over screens start messing with your head. Sometimes the screen doesn't say exit, it says exist. And if you click it, Ocelot tells you it's not over yet, like the game's begging you to keep going. Oh, and if you kill your own soldiers in Metal Gear Solid 5, Miller and Ocelot will be disappointed in you, so like, you know, full on guilt trip. What makes all of this so unsettling is that the game over screen isn't just a screen, it's part of the story. It knows you messed up, it remembers, and it talks back. It's pretty dramatic, but it's also kind of sad. And yeah, sometimes it's just really eerie. Honestly, no other series makes dying feel this loud. Okay, so this one's a little different. Most game over screens are just like, you died, try again. But in the Batman games, oh nah, here the villains roast you for dying. And I'm not just talking generic taunts. I'm talking Joker looking right at your screen like he knows you exist, and then clowning you while your body's still warm. So in the Arkham games, Asylum, City, Origins, Night, all of them, when Batman or any other character you're playing as dies or fails a mission, the screen goes black, and then your enemy shows up. Joker, Harley, Scarecrow, Riddler, even side villains like Black Mask or Deadshot. They just show up and talk trash. Some even act like they're standing over your corpse, like literally. Joker might jump on your body, Penguin flicks a cigar at you. It's kind of funny but also weirdly personal. What makes it unsettling is how immersive it is. They talk to Batman, but it really feels like they're talking to you. The way the camera lingers on your body, the dark background, and how the villain's face just floats in, it's low-key nightmare fuel. And sometimes the game doesn't even let you retry right away. Like in Night, it boots you to a loading screen with cryptic hints. And if you're playing during the Joker hallucination parts, he even breaks the fourth wall and says stuff like,
What the? Why's everything gone dark? Are we dying? We better not be dying, Bruce.
Like, okay bro, chill. But honestly, the creepiest ones, it's when someone you were trying to protect dies. Fail to save a hostage, they get shot. Miss a cue, Lucius Fox gets capped in the face. You let Harley Quinn spot Robin, she literally says history's repeating itself and blasts him. It's especially bad in Arkham City, where there's stuff like being dragged underwater by sharks, boiled alive in acid, or squeezed to death by Poison Ivy's vines. Also, shout out to the Riddler deaths where Catwoman's head just straight up explodes if you pick the wrong key. What makes all of this creepy is not just the visuals, it's the idea that in this world, you messed up and the game wants you to sit in that failure. So yeah, there's no like sad music or soft fade out. It's just you, a dark screen, and a villain monologuing over your lifeless body. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. So Cadillacs and Dinosaurs is this pretty wild arcade beat 'em up from 1993, made by Capcom. It's based on the Cenozoic Tales comic and had a short-lived animated series, but the games are what most people remember. You play as one of 4 characters, Jack, Mustafa, Hannah, or Mess, and you're basically going around the post-apocalyptic future fighting gangs, punching dinosaurs, and blowing stuff up. Classic arcade chaos. The game over screen in this one, it's actually kind of intense for a 90s arcade game. If you lose and don't continue within the timer, the screen cuts to a first-person view of your character with one of the bosses pointing a gun right in your face. It says stuff like, "Eat lead, baby," and then just pulls the trigger. Screen fades to black and you're done. That's your game over. What makes it kinda creepy isn't the graphics or anything, it's literally pixel art, but just the vibe. Like, most arcade games give you a countdown and maybe some flashy insert coin message. This one straight up threatens you, and the guy's just staring right at you. It's aggressive, a little too personal, and yeah, it's definitely memorable. If you saw this as a kid, it probably stuck with you. The Final Fight trilogy. Alright, Final Fight is one of those classic Capcom beat 'em ups from the arcade era, and it's honestly kind of legendary. I just realized we already have 2 beat 'em up arcade games in a row in this list, okay? You play as muscle dudes, Hager, Cody, Guy, beating the absolute life out of gang members to save Hager's daughter. Just fists, pipes, and old school arcade rage. But what's interesting is how this trilogy handles its game over screens. Across Final Fight 1, 2, and 3, when you die and don't continue, it's not a try again, they hit you with a whole little drama. In the first game, you got this bomb countdown. The screen shows your character staring at a lit stick of TNT, and the fuse keeps getting shorter as the timer ticks down. If you don't continue, well, it explodes, obviously. Screen flashes white, and you're hit with this angry red game over text on a black screen. It's actually kind of intense for a game where you just beat up punks on the subway. In the SNES ports, especially Final Fight 2 and 3, they switch it up. Instead of the bomb, they show a mugshot of the character beat to hell, like they've been captured. You get the timer under the image, and the vibe is way grimmer. The red text is still there though, like Capcom really wanted that to be the last thing you see. There's something weirdly final about these screens. You're not just losing, you're either getting blown up or shown as completely helpless. For a pixel beat 'em up, it leaves more of an impact than you'd expect. Donkey Kong 64. Donkey Kong 64 is usually remembered for its massive collectathon gameplay, that cursed rap intro, and how it basically pushed the Nintendo 64 expansion pack to its limits. But beneath all the chaos is a really eerie game over screen, in a Nintendo game. If you failed to stop King K. Rool in time, like if you don't complete the final mission, you get this kind of cinematic game over. It cuts to his lair, and K. Rool is just sitting there laughing maniacally, and then he presses a button on his throne, still laughing, and then the screen slowly fades to black. Then it cuts to outside. You see the mobile island fortress, this huge mechanical island he's been using, and the hatch opens. A massive laser starts charging up, pointing right at DK Island, and just before it fires, it fades to black again. Game over pops up. That's it. No explosion, no closure, you're just left hanging, not knowing if the Kongs lived or died. It's so weirdly dark, especially for a Donkey Kong game. Like most Nintendo game overs are cartoony or lighthearted, this one feels like the end of the world, and the fact that they don't show the actual destruction makes it way more unsettling. Super Smash Bros. 64 and Melee. Super Smash Bros. Isn't exactly a horror series, it's Nintendo characters beating each other up on colorful stages. But even here, the game over screens have this kind of eerie vibe, especially in the first two games, 64 and Melee. In the original Smash 64, when you lose in classic mode, your fighter just collapses, like a doll version of them falls over in this silent black space. Then the announcer in that deep voice just goes, "Continue?" If you say no, or if you just let it sit, the screen fades out and he says game over. The music cuts, it's quiet, cold. And for a game where Mario can punch Pikachu, it's kind of haunting, I'm not gonna lie. Melee takes it even further though. Your character isn't a doll this time, they're a literal trophy. And when you lose, that trophy drops into a void. It just falls and lands with a solid thud. The screen goes black, and if you don't have enough coins to continue, you're just stuck watching the trophy sit there lifeless. Then game over. No music, no animation. It's weirdly final. You're a statue now. That's it. You're just a statue. These aren't flashy or violent deaths, but something about the way they show your character as just an object makes these game over screens way more unsettling than you'd expect from a Smash game. Mortal Kombat 4. Mortal Kombat 4 might have been the franchise's leap into 3D, but its game over screens stayed as brutal and mean-spirited as ever, in the best and weirdest way. When you run out of lives in the arcade version, you don't just lose, you're taunted and pressured. Like, really hard. If you let the continue timer hit 0, your fighter... Street Fighter 2: The World Warrior. Street Fighter 2 might not seem like the type of game to have a creepy game over screen, but if you were a kid back in the arcade days, it definitely left a mark. When you lose twice to the same opponent, the game doesn't just kick you out, it rubs it in your face. The screen cuts to your character all beat up and lying on the ground, usually with their face bruised and lifeless. You get this dramatic countdown hovering over them as your opponent taunts you with a line like, "You must defeat Shang Long to stand a chance." And yeah, the quote doesn't make any sense, but it did sound cool as hell back then. If you don't continue, your character's portrait fades to gray. There's this haunting screen depending on who you played as, and then a pale orange game over flashes on screen before sending you back to the title screen or leaderboard. On Super Nintendo, their mugshots are even mirrored for some reason, which somehow makes it look weirder. The Punisher. Capcom's The Punisher arcade game is already very gritty, but when you lose all your health, things get surprisingly intense for a beat 'em up. Instead of a generic game over screen, you're shown your character laid out on a table, while an ally that desperately tries to revive you. For the Punisher, it's Microchip giving CPR. For Nick Fury, it's Alexander Pierce with Kathleen Neville. The scene even includes a heart monitor at the bottom of the screen, and it's very serious. They make it out to be like weirdly serious. If you don't continue in time, the heart monitor flatlines. You literally die right there on screen. Then the game cuts to a black screen and the Punisher's skull logo behind a yellow game over. It's way more dramatic than you'd expect from a comic book brawler. The Genesis version tones it down, it has no flat lines, just a boring silver continue followed by a basic game over screen if you run out of credits. Still, the arcade version hits different, it's not scary, but that flat line does have some weight to it. Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3. The Donkey Kong Country games might look cute on the surface, but their game over screens are infamous for being weirdly eerie, and a lot of people agree with this. So Donkey Kong Country, the first game, messing up too many times leaves Donkey and Diddy Kong beat up and slumped in defeat. Donkey hides his face in shame, while Diddy just has a black eye and holds his head. The screen is pitch black, the game over text is carved out of wood, and a slow funeral dirge plays in the background, just in case you didn't feel bad enough already. On the Game Boy Advanced version, the background is a jungle instead of black, and the whole thing fades out automatically once the music ends. Donkey also gets a chest bandage this time, like he took one to the ribs. Donkey Kong Country 2, this one goes more atmospheric, like Diddy and Dixie are trapped in a prison cell, and the game over text slowly drops from the top of the screen as the light from a tiny window shines down on them. Diddy gazes out the window while Dixie turns away, arms crossed, looking defeated. It's weirdly sad, especially when the screen turns blood red as the music dies down. In the Game Boy Advance port, the red is replaced with a less aggressive purple, but the scene still stands. Finally, in DK Country 3, this one's weird, but it's still very effective. A door creaks open to reveal Dixie and Kiddy Kong trapped in a giant baby crib. Kitty looks scared while Dixie just looks over it, sitting in the corner, arms folded. You know, she clearly looks like she's done with this nonsense. The game over screen slowly slides in as a somber lullaby plays. Once it ends, the door shuts, leaving them in the dark. And you know, the Game Boy Advance remix had to replace a sad tune with a moody version of the original Donkey Kong Country theme. But yeah, across all three games, these screens don't scream horror, but they all carry this weird vibe of defeat and melancholy. For platformers starring cartoon apes, the emotional punch is kind of unexpected, and it definitely sticks with a lot of kids. Plants vs. Zombies. Okay, you already know Plants vs. Zombies, unless you're like 5 or something. In Plants vs. Zombies, when a zombie finally makes it into your house, and you're out of lawnmowers, everything stops. A zombie walks in, you hear 2 chomps, and then the screen shows big green slime text saying, "The zombies ate your brains." Right after that, you hear a drawn out scream, and then a game over dialogue box appears, showing how far you made it. From there, you can either restart or exit. In survival mode, the game gives you a little recap like you survived for 9 flags before dying a gruesome zombie death. Different versions of the game tweak this a bit. On PC and older versions, you get a simple box with buttons. On mobile, the background goes darker and the message stays up longer. Consoles use slightly different text. Instead of main menu, it might say quit. Some minigames and puzzle modes like Zombie, Last Stand, or Vase Breaker skip the cutscene entirely. The game just pops up a dialogue box that says something like, "You lost all your zombies," or "You made it to a streak of 6. Yeah, point is, the screams in the, normal game over are pretty disturbing for a 6-year-old to hear, so, yeah. Silent Evil 3? Okay, I think the creator made a typo and it's supposed to be Silent Hill 3, so yeah. In Silent Hill 3, when Heather dies, the screen fades to red without any game over text. Though in the later parts of the game, a cutscene might play showing her body being dragged away by Valtiel, a creature that, silently watches her throughout the story. He never attacks, but his presence is constant, and the moment he takes her body, kinda hits different. It's subtle, eerie, and ties into the cult's goal of rebirthing their god, I think it was, or something like that. The game doesn't need to say much, the implication is already enough. Tecmo Night. When you lose all your lives in Tecmo Night, you're hit with one of the creepiest continue screens from any arcade game I've ever seen. The tiny knight is trapped in the jaws of a giant monster, desperately trying to hold him open. A red countdown ticks away as he struggles, and if you don't continue in time, the jaw slams shut with a loud chump, and the knight lets out a chilling scream. You never even see the monster's face, which somehow makes it even worse. If you let it time out, the game cuts to a dark game over screen showing a grim soldier holding an axe, staring right at you with the words "No future" and "Jello" above a blood red game over. It's simple but really eerie, like the game is saying you're completely done for, so yeah. Metroid Prime 2 and 3. In Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, when Samus dies, her suit goes into a critical state and a loud, rapid heart monitor beeping plays. The screen shows a system alert and quickly transitions into a flat line with a cold failure message. Her body is motionless and everything shuts down. The atmosphere is very heavy and it's easily one of the darkest game over sequences in the series, especially with how clinical and final it feels. In Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, things got pretty disturbing too. When Samus dies normally, a single drop of blood slides across the screen with the words game over, but if she succumbs to Phazon Corruption, the screen instead shows a blue drop of fluid and the message terminal corruption appears below. The screen pulses faintly as if the corruption is still alive inside her. It's subtle but incredibly eerie, like her body is lost, not just dead. System Shock. Okay, so System Shock doesn't just hit you with a typical you died screen, it really messes with you, like really tries to get under your skin. If you die in most parts of the game, the screen just glitches out, red flashes, static, and then total silence. But if you happen to die near one of those cyborg conversion chambers, that's where things get real dark. Shodan, the main antagonist like AI thing, doesn't just kill you, she repurposes you. There's this disturbing cutscene where one of her Cortex Reavers drags your limp body to the chamber. You're completely powerless. Then it cuts to your brain getting sealed inside some metal monstrosity, your consciousness twisted, overridden, and recycled into one of Shodan's obedient cyber slaves. It's not just game over, it's like your entire identity is erased, and you become part of the very horror you were trying to fight. Honestly, it's one of the most haunting game over sequences I've ever seen, not because it's loud or flashy, but because it feels so personal. You literally get absorbed, like yeah. Conker's Bad Fur Day. Oh god, this game. So most games give you a you died screen, right? Conker's Bad Fur Day gives you a cutscene. Actually, it gives you multiple cutscenes, each weirder and darker than the last. Depending on how Conker dies, the game plays a fully animated bad ending. Get fried by lava or electrocuted, you're delivered to the villain in a bag labeled a bit frazzled. Drown in water or honey, your body's soggy but still usable. Fall from a high ledge and explode into pieces, doesn't matter, they're still taping your body to a table leg. And yeah, that's the messed up part. Conker dies and they literally use his corpse as furniture. It's morbid, it's darkly funny, and it sticks with you. Even the actual ending of the game doesn't let you off easy. Barry dies, Conker becomes king, and the whole thing ends on a monologue about how sometimes you don't appreciate what you have until it's gone. Five Nights at Freddy's. So yeah, the FNAF series has a noticeable change in how it handles game over screens. In the first game, you got a clear view. If I remember correctly, your body literally just gets stuffed into a Freddy suit and the eyes are like staring out. It's pretty direct and disturbing. In FNAF 2, it changes. The screen just shows Freddy staring at you through the mask. No body, no aftermath, just a static stare before fading out. FNAF 3 simplifies it even more. There's no visual at all, just the word game over in red on a black screen. By FNAF 4, you only see a blood splatter before it cuts straight to the title screen. No lingering, no explanation, just silence and reset. Each game strips away more of the visual, going from full imagery to nothing at all. But, you know, it's not like that really matters though. Fallout 2. In Fallout 2, dying doesn't just mean a generic game over screen. The game features a series of narrated death messages voiced by Ron Perlman that reflects the circumstances of your death and how far you made it into the game. If you die early, messages often mention your failure to save your village, Arojo, from starvation or destruction. Some endings are even more grim. If you die during the late game segments, you might get told the Enclave won and wiped out humanity with the FEV virus. There are also some pretty darkly funny ones. If you die in Modoc, it says the townspeople leave your stinking corpse to rot. Others poke fun at you directly, lines like, hope you saved your game cause you're dead. No matter how you go, Fallout 2 always makes sure your failure has weight, or at least a bit, but also like a bit of humor, so yeah. Sonic CD. In Sonic CD, the game over screen plays out like most early Sonic games. Lose all your lives and you're sent back to the title screen. What makes Sonic CD stand out though is its infamous idle game over. If you leave Sonic standing still for 3 minutes, he gets impatient, says "I'm out of here" and literally jumps off the screen, instantly ending your game and causing an immediate game over. It's a quirky but kind of unsettling touch, especially when paired with the strange, distorted game over music in the Japanese and European versions. You just gotta hear this. So yeah, instead of just a fail state, it feels like Sonic himself gives up on you and the music doesn't help at all. Zelda 2: The Adventures of Link. Alright, this one's burned into the brains of a lot of 80s and 90s kids. In Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, when you lose all your lives, you don't just get a simple game over screen. Nope. The screen flashes red, lightning cracks, and Ganon, yeah that Ganon, appears as a looming black silhouette. The screen reads, "Return of Ganon," like it's straight out of a horror movie title card. You also get this weird, low-pitched, demonic laugh that honestly feels way too intense for an NES game. It's simple but super effective. The whole thing is just unsettling in how sudden and ominous it is, especially after all that classic 8-bit adventuring. And yeah, the screen has been called one of the creepiest game over screens in Nintendo history. Nosferatu. Nosferatu is this weird little horror platformer for the SNES that not a lot of people talk about. But its game over screen, yeah, it's one of the most quietly creepy ones from that era. When you lose all your lives, you're shown this grayscale photo of Kyle and his fiancée Erin, just the two of them smiling. The continue screen is all moody, gray, and quiet with a white continue and two options, yes or no. If you pick no, the screen cuts to black and drops a cold metallic game over in silver text. Feels pretty final, right? But what really gets you is what happens if you died at least 8 times. That sweet picture, well, Erin's smile changes and she has fangs. You messed up too many times and now Nosferatu's claimed her. If you make it to the end after that, she'll actually bite Kyle in the bad ending. And if you don't even try to continue, there's a short scene where Nosferatu himself leans in to bite Erin instead. Some players even notice that her head gets subtly more sinister in the photo with each death, but it's so slow you barely notice until it's too late. And that's what makes it hit different. This isn't just about you dying, it's the context, it's what your failure does to her. Friday the 13th. So this one's from the Friday the 13th on the NES. Say what you want about this game's janky design, but this game over screen, it's pretty legendary. When all 6 camp counselors die, or if Jason just slaughters every single child you're supposed to protect, you get slapped with a black screen and a cold robotic message in light blue text. You and your friends are dead. Game over. No music, no fade-ins, just those words. There's something really unnerving about how blunt it is. Like, yeah, NES games had plenty of game over screens, but this one just feels different. It's not just you died, it's a total wipeout. Everyone's gone, Jason wins, and the game doesn't even flinch. It's almost creepier because of how quiet and emotionless it is. Just black screen, light blue text, no retry prompt, just nothing. Banjo and Kazooie. Banjo-Kazooie doesn't mess around when it comes to its game over. If you run out of lives or quit the game while Gruntilda is still around, the game doesn't just give you a simple try again screen. Nah, this game gives you a full-on bad ending. It cuts to a whole cutscene where Grunty's minion Klungo flips a switch on a machine that swaps Tootie's looks for Gruntilda's. And it works. Tootie becomes this gnarly, mutated creature, while Grunty gets turned into, I'm not gonna say it. Anyways, then Mumbo Jumbo walks in, sees the new Grunty, and immediately falls in love with her. No hesitation, it's honestly kind of messed up, bro. Like, dude is just really down bad. Meanwhile, Banjo and Kazooie are just chilling, completely unaware that everything's gone to hell. It's all super tongue-in-cheek like the rest of the game, but as a kid, seeing your sister turned into a monster and the villain winning was low-key traumatizing. It just makes you sit there and think like, damn, I really shouldn't have quit. Coraline. The Coraline video game, released in 2009 for platforms like PlayStation 2, Wii, and Nintendo DS, is renowned for its unsettling atmosphere, particularly its game over screens. But yeah, this one's just pretty straightforward. A lot of people just find these images at the game over screen of Coraline kind of creepy, so yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. 3D Monster Maze. This one's ancient, literally from 1981. But it's still one of the earliest examples of a survival horror game. You get dropped into a randomly generated maze, first person view, and somewhere in there is a T-Rex. No music, no weapons, no HUD, just you, the maze, and this giant blocky dinosaur stalking you. There's no actual game over screen like we'd see today. Instead, if the T-Rex catches you, it lunges forward with a bunch of jagged teeth that take over the screen, and that's it. No blood, no screams, just you are sentenced to roam the maze forever. You even get the option to appeal your death, but it's a 50-50 chance. If you lose, you're tossed right back in. It's bizarre. What made it really creepy, especially for the time, was how quiet it all was. The tension came from the status lines like Rex has seen you or run, he is behind you, and because of how the ZX81 worked, the screen would redraw in jerky bursts. So it literally felt like the dino was glitching closer with every breath. Even today, people in retro forums say this game genuinely freaked them out as kids. No music, no jump scare, just pure primal dread. Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Okay, this one's iconic. Majora's Mask doesn't hit you with a traditional game over screen, at least not like you died, flashing in red or anything like that. If Link loses all his hearts and has no fairies to revive him, you just respawn like usual. But if you fail to stop the moon from crashing before the end of the third day, that's when the real game over happens. Instead of a simple screen, the game plays a full-on cutscene of the moon slamming into Termina. It's quiet at first, then everything's engulfed in flames. You see buildings crumble, fire spread, and then nothing. Just Majora's Mask slowly floating through the fire as the Happy Mask Sailman's voice creeps in, saying you've met with a terrible fate. And then you're thrown back to day one like it never happened. No progress, no item saved, nothing. The creepiest part is how calm it is. The game doesn't scream game over, it just ends the world and acts like it's no big deal. It's less of a you lost and more like a soft apocalypse. Definitely one of the more unsettling fail states in a Zelda game. And that concludes this tier, I think, so yeah. Ninja Gaiden. When you lose all your lives in the original Ninja Gaiden arcade game, it doesn't just give you a simple game over, it literally threatens you. The continue screen shows Ryu tied up, flat on his back with this giant saw blade slowly descending from above. Behind him are a bunch of creepy demons just standing around watching. You got a countdown in red, giving you maybe 10 seconds to decide if you're gonna continue. If you don't put in a coin in time, the screen flashes blood red and shows a white game over while that saw presumably finishes the job. It's wild because it feels more like a torture scene than a normal game over. It's straight up psychological pressure to keep playing, like are you really gonna let Ryu die like that? Even today, this game over stands out just for how aggressive and weirdly personal it is. The game literally puts your character in a horror scenario just because you lost. It's brutal and honestly kind of brilliant. Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is a classic JRPG from the SNES era where you play as Chrono, a silent protagonist who gets caught up in a time travel adventure after a teleportation experiment goes wrong. Along the way, you meet a bunch of characters from different time periods. A night frog, a robot from the future, a prehistoric warrior, and eventually find out that a giant alien parasite called Lavos is going to destroy the world. The goal? Well, stop Lavos, obviously, and change the future before it's too late. But messing with time isn't simple, and depending on your choices, things can go very differently. And the game over? Well, honestly, I think it just speaks better for itself. I'm just gonna play it. Resident Evil 2 and 3. Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, the originals from the late 90s by the way, didn't hold back with their game over screens. When Leon, Claire, or Jill die, you're hit with a black screen and the words "you died" in red, usually after a brutal death animation like being eaten alive or decapitated. Some of these, like Mr. X crushing you or Nemesis impaling Jill, stick with people even years later. Players on forums still talk about how jarring it was. You'd watch your characters scream in pain, then the game would just cut to black. Simple but creepy as hell. The First Funky Fighter. The First Funky Fighter is one of those obscure arcade games that people only remember because of its originality and it being revolutionary, but also nightmare fuel game over screen. You lose all your health and suddenly your character's face is busted and bloodied. Half his face literally missing, just staring straight at you with a blank, almost lifeless expression. Then in dripping red letters, Game Over flashes across the screen like it's smeared in blood. No dramatic music, no second chances, just raw visual punishment. A lot of players online say the screen disturbed them way more than it had any right to, especially since the rest of the game isn't even that serious or dark. So yeah, why is half of his face missing? Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion. So Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion is way more than just cheap jump scares and cardboard cutouts. A lot of the death screens, those eerie moments where something finally catches you, actually hint at twisted backstories or metaphors, even if the devs admit some were written just to sound cool. You've got Specimen 2, a goo monster who absorbs your mind and body, turning you into more of himself. Then there's Specimen 4, a ghost girl straight out of The Ring who's actually more dangerous in her true form. Some, like Specimen 6, the puppet guy, want to turn you into part of their broken family, and Specimen 5 will literally drain your thoughts until your brain just shuts off. Others are full-on cosmic horror, like Specimen 8, who's basically a deer demigod made by an eldritch being called Bayagatoth. There's even a parasite that hijacks your body while your soul tries to warn you in binary. Some death screens are metaphorical. Monster 4's screen is all about depression and suicide, showing that the game isn't afraid to get disturbingly real. The guide goes way beyond just in-game monsters too. There are messed up death animations tied to things like touching electric fences, furnaces, or even just sitting in a cursed chair. Some monsters like Specimen 9 come from real life horror history, like I think it's based off Unit 731 like the Human Experiments, while others are just clever references to games like PT, FNAF, or I'm Scared. And let's not forget Spooper, who literally tries to impregnate you with spores so you can die and become part of his dream world. At the end of the day, whether it's tragic, cryptic, or just plain weird, Spooky's uses death not just to scare you, but to tell stories. You know, not every screen has a hidden meaning, but the ones that do are actually pretty good. And yeah, I actually replayed this game for this Iceberg, and it's really just unbelievably goated. Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus isn't a horror game, but its game over screens have a weirdly unsettling vibe that a lot of players remember vividly. When Wonder dies, the camera slowly pans to the Colossus that kills you, and it just stares. No music sting, no "you died" text, just this massive ancient creature looming silently over your broken body like it's judging you. It's eerie in a quiet, existential way. The one that comes up the most is, of course, Dirge, the massive sandworm. If you know, you know. When it kills you, it freezes with this smug expression that almost looks like a grin. People have called it nightmare fuel, and I can see it. Some even said they thought they were playing a creepypasta version of the game the first time it happened, Others point to Gaius and Malus, I'm probably butchering those names, whose death stares hit especially hard because of how human they feel. Like the Colossi know they didn't want to fight in the first place. There's also something really haunting about the silence that follows your death. It's just really still, and with the haunting soundtrack by Kao Otani in the background, the game kind of forces you to just sit in your failure. And yeah, the Dirge one is especially cursed. I had to see it, so you have to see it too. Robinson's Requiem. Robinson's Requiem is a 1994 survival simulation game where you play as a space explorer stranded on a hostile alien planet. The goal isn't just to escape, it's to survive harsh environments, injuries, infections, hunger, and disease using realistic medical tools and procedures. The game is infamous for its extreme realism and brutal difficulty. You have to monitor your vital signs constantly, treat wounds manually, and even perform surgery on yourself. Death can come from the smallest mistake, like failing to disinfect a cut or eating toxic food. It's less of a traditional game and more of a survival horror experience, way ahead of its time in terms of immersion and body horror. So what I think I'm gonna do for these like 3 first game over screens of this layer is I'm just gonna play them. Like, yeah, they are pretty self-explanatory on why they're here, so here you go. Sweet Home. Sweet Home is a 1989 Japanese survival horror RPG for the Famicom, or the NES, often credited as the blueprint for the Resident Evil series. You control a group of 5 filmmakers exploring a haunted mission to uncover its dark secret. The gameplay mixes exploration, puzzle solving, turn-based combat, and permadeath. So yeah, if a character dies, they're gone for good, and you have to keep going without them. What made it creepy wasn't just the story, but also the unsettling atmosphere, detailed pixel art gore for the time, and the eerie chiptune soundtrack. It's surprisingly dark and brutal for an NES game and still holds a cult following as one of the earliest examples of true survival horror. Soma is a 2015 sci-fi horror game by Frictional Game, the creators of Amnesia. It's set in an underwater research facility called Pathos 2 after Earth has suffered an extinction-level event. You play as Simon Jarrett, a man who wakes up in the facility with no idea how he got there. As you explore, you uncover disturbing truths about consciousness and, a lot of philosophical stuff. The game messes with your perception of reality, forcing you to confront ethical nightmares about transferring minds and body swapping stuff. I'm pretty sure what this entry is referring to though is this game over screen that, again, I'm just gonna play. So here we go. Phantasmagoria. Phantasmagoria is a point-and-click horror adventure game released in 1995 by Sierra. It's famous and infamous for using full-motion video with real actors and for its over-the-top gore and disturbing content. You play as Adrienne Delaney, a writer who moves into a creepy old mansion with her husband, Dawn. As the game progresses, Dawn becomes increasingly violent and possessed by dark forces tied to the house's grisly past. Adrienne has to uncover the mansion's secrets to survive. The game is known for its brutal scenes and game over moments. If you make the wrong choice, Adrienne can die in sudden graphic ways, like getting her face torn off or her head crushed in a torture device. These deaths come out of nowhere and can be genuinely shocking, especially considering how slow and calm the rest of the game often is. Lion King 5. The Lion King 5, Timon and Pumbaa, is an unlicensed bootleg platformer for the NES Famicom, created by Dragon Corporation. Despite its lighthearted characters, it's gained infamy for its extremely disturbing game over screens. In each of the 3 endings, the characters die in dark, unsettling ways. Simba is shown reaching for a noose and hanging himself as the ground crumbles beneath him. Timon digs a grave, jumps into it and buries himself, placing a shovel as a tombstone, and Pumbaa jumps into a boiling pot as if sacrificing himself. These death screens are shockingly grim for a game featuring Disney characters, and are a major reason the game is often discussed in creepy video game circles. Also, this comment that I found kind of makes sense, but it's really disturbing to think about. XCOM UFO Defense. XCOM UFO Defense is a 1994 strategy game where you manage a global defense force against an alien invasion. You command squads in turn-based missions, research alien tech, and manage your base resources. Yeah, this game over screen is pretty bleak. I don't know if I should play. I'm just gonna play it, yeah. Quick heads up, for these first 2 entries of the layer, I'm gonna restrain myself from showing the actual gore that appears in these game over screens. I don't think the last one is as bad because it's kind of goofy and it doesn't really look that realistic. But yeah, these first 2 are just gonna stay in the drafts. Who knows, maybe in the future I'll make a Patreon where I post uncensored content, even though I think that is kind of cringe, so maybe not. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, let's just get into it. These are pretty freaky and just really disturbing. Waxwork. Waxworks is one of those forgotten horror gems from the early 90s, released on DOS, Amiga, and Mac. Developed by Horrorsoft. It's a first-person dungeon crawler, but don't let the old school look fool you. This game is brutal. You play as a descendant of a cursed bloodline. Every generation of twins is doomed, one good and one evil. After your twin is corrupted, you have to travel through 4 grotesque wax museum exhibits that double as time portals. Each one drops you into a different horror scenario: Jack the Ripper's London, an Egyptian pyramid, a zombie-infested graveyard, and a haunted Victorian mine. But what really makes Waxworks infamous is its death screen. This game doesn't just say game over, it shows it in the most graphic, detailed, and sadistic way possible. You can be hanged in public if you're mistaken for Jack the Ripper. You can be devoured by zombies in the graveyard, impaled by spike traps in the pyramid, mauled by a crocodile, decapitated, suffocated by gas, or stabbed by arrows, and even sealed alive in a coffin by a cursed spirit. Each death comes with a full-screen, hand-drawn CG image showing your body in full gory detail. In the pyramid section alone, there's a dozen unique ways to die. Trigger a wrong puzzle, and you got a boulder to the face. Pick up the wrong object, and you cue the swarm of venomous cobras. You choke, you rot, you bleed out, you burn. And the game spares no detail. It's not just edge for shock value either. There's something unsettling about how personal these deaths feel. You're always alone, navigating tight corridors, unsure if a wrong move is going to set off your demise. It preys on claustrophobia and paranoia, and the deaths feel like a punishment, not just for losing, but for daring to try. Waxworks may be nearly forgotten now, but it walked so modern horror games could run. These death screens weren't just scary, they were literally telling you that you are going to die horribly and we're going to show you every last second of it. Hong Kong 97. Oh god, so I already talked about this entry on a previous video, and I kind of don't want to talk about it again because of the contents that involve it. Here goes nothing. So, Hong Kong 97 is an infamous, unlicensed shoot-'em-up game developed by Happysoft in 1995 for the Super Famicom. Designed by Japanese journalist Kowloon Kurosawa, The game was intended as a satirical critique of the video game industry and was developed in just 2 days. Despite its crude design and controversial content, it has garnered a cult following over the years. So, set against the backdrop of the 1997 handover of Hong Kong from the United Kingdom to China, the game features a character named Shin, portrayed using an image of Jackie Chan. Shin is tasked with eliminating the entire population of China to curb the rising crime rate attributed to immigration from the mainland. The gameplay involves shooting at waves of enemies descending from the top of the screen, with very little variation or progression at all. It's just a really bad game. One of the most disturbing aspects of Hong Kong 97, as you could expect, is a game over screen. Upon the player's defeat, the screen displays a grainy, real-life photograph of a corpse with the overlaid text "Shin is dead" in English, and this in Chinese. Yes, a real-life corpse as the game over screen. This image was long speculated to be of various individuals, including a Polish boxer and a Palestinian activist. However, in 2019, it was confirmed that the photograph is a still from the Japanese shockumentary New Death File 3, depicting an unidentified victim of the Bosnian War in 1992. So yeah, pretty crazy stuff. The game's offensive content, including its use of real death imagery and pretty derogatory language, has made it a subject of controversy among, a lot of gaming communities. Its notoriety was actually further amplified by coverage from content creators like the Angry Video Game Nerd. Despite, or perhaps because of its shocking elements, Hong Kong 97 remains a stark example of how video games can cross boundaries of taste and decency. There are several videos that, discuss this game more in depth and the game over screen too, so if you want to check those out, you can. You could even check out my older video that talks about this game over screen, but yeah. Let's just move on. Felix the Cat Russian bootleg. Oh god. Okay, well, here we are at the end, and there's no better way to end off this list than with this infamous game over screen. The Russian bootleg of Felix the Cat for the Sega Mega Drive is an unauthorized port of the original NES game developed by Hudson Soft. This version, believed to have been developed by BMB and published by Kudos around 2010 to 2011, is notorious for its pretty disturbing game over screen. In this bootleg, the core premise remains. Felix embarks on a quest to rescue his girlfriend, Kitty, from the evil professor. However, the gameplay is significantly stripped down. The port features only 12 levels, omits all boss fight, and employs a random assortment of music tracks sourced from various video games. The sound engine used is TFM Music Maker, and the game's mechanics are very rudimentary, reflecting the limited development resources during this time, I guess. So what sets this bootleg apart is its unsettling game over screen. Upon losing all lives, players are presented with an image of Felix tearing off his face, revealing a bloodied skull beneath. This graphic is a colorized version of an artwork titled Felix the Cat Unmasked by artist Chris, also known as Dosai. The sequence unfolds with Felix ascending to a cloud, reaching for a halo, accompanied by music from Uwal Quest for Money. Players are then given the option to continue or not. Choosing not to continue or having no continues left triggers the disturbing image.
What?
This bootleg has garnered attention in gaming communities for obviously its jarring departure from the original game's tone. The grotesque imagery is very different from, the typically lighthearted aesthetic of Felix the Cat, leading to a lot of discussion on Reddit and YouTube. But yeah, it's just really edgy stuff, and honestly, it just brings me back to the good old YouTube horror days. So yeah, that was the ride. Who would have thought game over screens could go from simple "you died" messages to existential horror, real life corpses, or cursed bootlegs with really disturbing imagery? Well, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments which screen messed you up the most, or if there's one in this iceberg that, was missing. I've got more icebergs on the way, so if you're into weird, obscure, and kind of cursed game stuff and cursed stuff in general, you know what to do. Also, I kind of forgot to thank you guys for 10,000 subscribers. I know I'm kind of late, but I just want to say I appreciate all of you who watch my videos, even with all their flaws. And I'm happy to have you guys as company in this very unexpected journey. So I truly appreciate all of you, subscriber or not. See you guys in the next video. Peace.